I love that intro sequence. It's just kind of bouncy. What's up, you saucy nuggets? It's the Magic Nate here with 24/7 Comics presenting Unhinged with Terry Kavanagh. No, I'm not Carl Choi. I know we get mistaken a lot. We look so similar. And I'm going to be your co-host today along with the legend himself, Terry. Terry, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Legend is another word for old.
How we doing this morning?
Good, good. I might be. You're getting over a cold. I might be coming down with one.
Uh, it's
So
that time of year. It just makes
yeah,
it seasons change. Everybody gets a little stuffy. And I just want to say, hey, welcome all you fine, fantastic, saucy nuggets watching us right now. Uh, this is Unhinged. We have a lot of fun. It's where everything's made up and the points don't matter. Um,
like
oh, that's
Quidditch.
an yeah, there we go. Uh, Unhinged is our way to showcase a different side of the comic book industry. It's not the prim and fine, fantastic art that you see on pages. Instead, we get to talk about the things that not everybody likes to talk about or gets the chance to talk about. Um, we have a special guest today. Terry, would you please tell our audience about our special guest?
Yes, we're going to be bringing on Chris Cooper, who I worked with at Marvel many moons ago. It was probably even over 2 years ago. Way over 2 years ago. Chris was a fellow editor and good friend. Um, he's also changed, he's pivoted his life in a different direction from comic books. He did that a while ago. And even more recently, he's pivoted again. And I'm going to ask him all about that as soon as you bring him on.
Well, without further ado, all you people watching at home, whether or not you're wearing pants, please give a big warm welcome to Chris Cooper.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Nate. Hi, Terry. And I feel like I should be pirouetting with all these pivots I've done in my
Yeah.
life. And like, yeah, it's spinning around and around and around.
So let's hear what you're up to now, Chris.
Oh, I hate you. You sound like my boyfriend who was like, "So, what are you going to do?" And I'm like, "Shut up." I don't know what I'm doing right now. It's a really good question. And one I hope to be able to answer soon for the sake of my bank account.
That's fair. That's fair. But you're a speaker now, aren't you?
I do a lot of speaking engagements now because of something that happened,
Go
and
ahead. Tell everybody, Chris.
oh no, come on.
Yes, if you don't, I will.
All right, so let's start with the end of Marvel. So there came the end of my time at Marvel when this is, you got to remember, this is Marvel in the mid late 90s, and this is before any of the movies. So Marvel is just well, one of the biggest comic book publishers, certainly superhero comics, but just comics. That's what we did. And so comics go through boom bust cycles for various reasons, including, if you ask me, people not doing things that were right for the company. Marvel went through a big, deep bust. Again, this is before the movies.
Nope.
And they laid off like 2/3 of the staff, including yours truly. So, I was left wondering, oh, what do I do with myself now? Happily, I was a much younger man. So it's easier to pivot, as you like to say. So in my first pirouette, I ended up just kind of falling into medical advertising, medical publishing. So I did a whole lot of medical editing and sort of made a career out of that.
Is that
For
as much fun as it sounds?
oh oh my goodness! And I needed the pharmaceuticals to revive myself from the coma I would lapse into as
Fair
I
enough.
was doing the work. So I did that for over 20 years.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then there came another pivot, purely accidentally. I was bird watching in Central Park because I happen to be a birder, have always been a birder, as these guys, or as certainly as Terry knows, I've been a birder forever. I
Yep.
would straggle in late during spring break I was out looking at the birds in Central Park. So I was in Central Park in Memorial Day 2020, and I ran into a person who did not want to leash their dog in an area where leashing your dog is required by the rules of the park. She and I got into it verbally, and she decided to drag race into it. And I was recording with my cell phone, and the whole thing went viral and did not go well for her. But for me, for whatever reason, it opened up a couple of doors, and I pirouetted again, another pivot, and ended up hosting a birding TV show for National Geographic, which was awesome. So much fun. The best job I had since leaving Marvel, actually. It was
Wow.
it was a thrill. So that was a lot of fun. Then after one season, Disney, who owns Nat Geo, just like they own Marvel, just like they own Star Wars, Disney decided to take Nat Geo in a different direction. So like almost all their shows that they had, they just kind of let go, including my show. So we got the news about that, and I was kind of bummed out. And then a couple of months later, I won an Emmy for the work on the show. So it's like,
Wow.
oh well.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So that was pretty cool. Meanwhile, I wrote a memoir, which inexplicably hit the New York Times bestseller list, which is like crazy talk. And there's a whole chapter, really a chapter and a half, devoted to the Marvel years. And then, so that did well. And I just had a children's book come out this past spring.
I didn't know that.
My first children's book ever. It's called The Urban Owls. It's published by Little Brown, and it's about some of the celebrity owls that have passed in New York City. Yeah, so it's really fun. If you got kids, you should get your hands on it. And what am I doing now? Who the hell knows?
Chris, I just want to say that I think a large part of how you made a success out of that incident in the park had to do with the graceful way you have handled it at the time and since then. I know that woman got in a lot of trouble and I think lost her job, etc. But you were very graceful about the whole thing and didn't seem to think that what was happening to her was fair.
Well, let's not go that far. But no, the important thing, and remains the important thing, is it's not about her. It really isn't. What's important about what happened in the park is what it reveals about where we are as a society, and how, a lot of people think, oh, Obama was president, racism is over. And it's like, okay. And then there's this. Yeah. And not just this, because the same day that happened, and this is one of the reasons why that incident was so prominent, the same day, that afternoon, George Floyd was murdered by a cop kneeling on his neck in Minneapolis. Same day.
Wow.
The same day. So, it's the important thing to realize is that there is this unconscious bias that permeates our society, and it poisons what we try to do. And only by becoming conscious about that and making a conscious efforts to remediate it, are we ever going to be able to move forward as a country and leave, start to leave that legacy of centuries of injustice behind. So that's what's important about what happened there. And that's what people need to keep top of mind. I always say, if you want to yell at that lady for what happened in Central Park, take a look in the mirror. Because you know what? You're carrying those same biases. And I don't care what race you are. We are all steeped in this culture that creates these biases in how we look at things. And so we need to be actively fighting against that now more so than ever. When you have, some guy in the White House who thinks it's appropriate to kick all immigrants out, except we're going to make a special exception and invite this very downtrodden group of people in. Who is that historically oppressed, downtrodden group of people? White South Africans.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Look,
Need I say more?
not to go too far down this path, but as a born and bred New Yorker, I didn't even realize the bubble I lived within, until I've made a semi move down south to New Orleans, and I live back and forth between the two places. And it opened my eyes to the reality of the world. I lived in this bubble, and I thought, this is going to sound ridiculously naive, obviously. I thought before I moved, yeah, there's probably 20 or 30 racists left in the world, but they're old and they'll die. I found out otherwise. And I'm not speaking negatively of New Orleans. I'm just saying it was the difference between anywhere and New York.
What happened to me was in Central Park in the middle of, the most, liberal city in the country, according to some people, from a Canadian. They're supposed to be nice.
Yeah. Wow. You actually rattled a Canadian. I didn't think that could happen.
So, well, we're all about dissing the Canadians now for no good reason. I mean, who picks a fight with Canada? I mean, really? Why?
It's a negotiating tactic for when we buy it.
Oh, right. Like that's ever gonna happen. Gonna happen.
All right, we've gone too far down the wrong path here.
Nate's like, okay, rein in the political stuff. Don't go there. Don't go there.
Yep. We're gonna try to keep everything politically neutral. That's the goal.
You got the wrong guess for that.
Yeah, and
try. I said try. I said try.
You got the wrong people.
Because we want to talk about that. Hold on, let me get the Brady Bunch. Let me get my little Brady Bunch thing going up. There we go. Want to talk more about kind of like the unhinged things you guys have experienced in the comics industry. But I do want to know first and foremost, how do you two know each other? How'd that come about?
Through Marvel.
Yeah, working at Marvel at the same time, and Chris did work for me on Marvel Comics Presents, and I think other things. And then I was writing Blade under Chris when Chris was the editor on Blade. So we worked as editors together, and we both worked as writers for the other one, and we're friends.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you'll find this generally from people who worked in that era in Marvel. The late '80s. I came in '90, and through pretty much the '90s.
Wow.
That it was just a really special, fun time. It was just, I realized, and I tried to capture that in my memoir when I was writing that chapter and a half about the Marvel days, and I just wanted to capture the spirit of the place because it was wacky, and we were wacky, and we were home, and we loved it, and we loved each other, even though we hated each other sometimes, and we got each other's nerves. We were. It was. I don't want to oversell it. There are lots of unhinged things that happened.
Yes.
Although I'm still waiting for gay Marvel birthday strippers, because Kelly Corvese, who was the other openly gay editor at Marvel, and who actually, told me when a job opened up, which is how I got in. A lot of people say, oh, Chris Gruber was the first openly gay editor at Marvel. I'm like, no, Kelly Corvese was there first. And he was your assistant editor, didn't he?
He was my assistant editor before he got promoted.
Yeah. So Kelly and I were the two openly gay guys, and we happened to have the exact same birthday.
That's right.
So we're like, and this could never happen now because of HR, but every once in a while, like a stripper would come in for somebody's birthday just to like throw everybody, off kilter. And I'm like, I'm waiting for the gay strippers for our birthday. Come on. No, disappointing year after year after year.
Damn it, if we had only known. And that really, Mark Grunwald was in charge of hyping us all up. So I'm going to say he should have hired the gay strippers.
I think the one time a gay stripper came in, or a male stripper came in, it was for Glenn Herdling's birthday because he's straight, just to annoy him.
Yes.
And I was like, Glenn, leave. I'll take care of this.
Go be annoyed somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, can't oversell what the experience was at Marvel in those days. It just, and who knew? I mean, it wasn't my first job out of school. My first job was as a salesman estimator for acoustical ceiling tile. Terrible job. Do not recommend. 0 stars. And that was a job. Marvel was not. It was, we were all doing something we loved. We were what were known as exempt employees. So if it took you 60 hours a week to get your books out, then you didn't get overtime. If you could get them out in 20 hours and meet shipping and there was quality to the work, then you only needed to work 20 hours. But we all worked more than we needed to because we liked hanging out with each other. We liked going to lunches and dinners, and it's a job experience that I don't think could ever be duplicated.
Yeah, no, it was a different era. It was less corporate. You did shipping, meaning shipping was a big deal. You wanted to make shipping, or your days as a favored editor were numbered.
Yes.
And of course, you wanted to put out a good product. Though some of that got eroded towards the end of our days when we had been taken public, and the stock price zoomed up initially, and who was it? Was it Ron Perlman? It
was Ron Perlman.
Yeah, the perfume magnate was rubbing his hands together like, oh, I can milk this cash cow. Yep. So every year we just got told, oh, put out more, without any sort of thought behind it of, there wasn't possible to put out more because you need ideas that are good. You need talent that's good if you're going to put out quality product. And, we were just like pushed to throw everything at the wall. And then, quality started to go down. And that's ultimately what led to the crash and the boom bust cycles.
Playing to the speculators rather than the fans. People thought we'll do a new Spider-Man #1, new X-Men #1, and we'll do 10 different covers on it. And then everybody's going to have to buy 100 copies of X-Men #1 because they're going to want 10 copies of each of the covers. And they all thought they were going to put their kids through college with this. And meanwhile, they're the least valuable comics out there because they had print runs of 8 million and 3 million. So you can't get a quarter for those comics now. And we were aware of that going on, but I'm not afraid to say Ron Perlman raped the company to pay off his Revlon debt.
Thank you.
That's what he did.
You said it, not me, but I affirm your statement 100%. And I think I put it in my memoir. I said that the heroes of Marvel were unprepared for the new villain who would sneak in and bring the company low.
That's good.
And I have to admit, I did do one gimmick, but it's a gimmick I'm actually proud of because I came up with the idea when I was writing Star Trek Starfleet Academy. I was like, you know what? If we do an issue entirely in Klingon, then we can strip out the bubbles and then like 2 weeks later put out the same issue in English.
Oh, wow.
And everyone will have to buy it twice. And like years later, years, when who was it? Who had the Star Trek license at that point? I forget who. I forget which company. But they were like, and now we present the first comic book ever entirely in Klingon. I'm like, we beat you to that punch. But it was fun.
Did both versions of that sell?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's cool.
People wanted to have it in Klingon, and that was the thing. I was like, you know what it was? It was my attempt to do a silent issue. And for those of you who don't know, a silent issue is like the holy grail of comic book writers, which is to tell an issue or to write a story that is told entirely visually so that the reader can grasp everything that happens in the story without you having to put a single word on the page. So this was my attempt to do a silent issue, because if it's in Klingon, no one's going to know what the hell is going on anyway. Right. It is not a silent issue. I did not achieve, silence. But it was my attempt, and it was fun to try, and it was interesting to do. And plus, Star Trek is one of the few, I would say the only other thing would be sort of Tolkien. that has an invented working language. And
Yes.
Tolkien has Quenya and Sindarin. Okay, now I'm totally nerding out. Whereas, Star Trek has Klingon. And so I'm like, well, we've got this language. It'd be tremendously fun. Oh, and I got to come up with the Klingon word for bitch.
Oh.
We didn't translate it as bitch,
Okay.
but it's bekok, which is basically kok is the suffix for so-called. So it's like a way to disparage someone.
Yeah.
And be means woman. So bekok is so-called woman.
Wait, so you had an English to Klingon dictionary you were working with?
Oh, well, yes, but we also had the Klingon Language Institute. Yes, there really is a Klingon Language Institute. So we contacted them and we said, hey, would you guys be willing to because they translate the Bible, they translate Shakespeare into Klingon.
Wow.
They're like, would you guys be willing to translate this into Klingon? They're like, hell yeah, we'd love to. So I, wrote it in English. I did, I had them translate it.
Yes.
But I did come up with the word bekok. And then, but when they translated it, I would kind of look over it and use my Klingon dictionary and try to make sure it all sort of matched up. And it was tremendous fun. And we had a Klingon glossary, as I recall, in the back of the issue. And then, so that people got the complete story. 2 weeks later, it came out in English.
That's brilliant. So the people at the Klingon Language Institute, actual Klingons?
They probably go to conventions dressed as.
Okay, fair enough. Probably had some wedding ceremonies as Klingons.
Yeah, they may have some Klingon blood, somewhere in their background.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Wow. We do have a question from the audience. Stan, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate that. He says, everybody, all the guests so far speak of the Marvel fun. Was fun the primary sauce for Marvel success? Thanks.
Sure. Also, they were good characters. We were given a really good base to work with. And then all we wanted to do was be creative. It's been interesting to me as someone who, like I said, my job before Marvel was not in a particularly creative field. And I sometimes forget, because we're so often, Chris, surrounded by creative people, that it's just sort of a natural thing. And I keep thinking it's the default mode for human beings. And then I realize I've worked with people that they don't have a creative bone in their body. It doesn't make them lesser. It's just I will have a conversation with them, about something creative, and they can't grasp it. They can do math way better than I can. They have skills I don't have, but I forget that it is a specific talent, creativity, and it's not necessarily natural to everyone.
Well, I will say this: in my 20+ year sojourn into the world of medical editing, medical publishing, I actually ran into a little bit of both. I ran into people who were clearly, creativity was not their thing. And that was really hard for me to go from Marvel to that.
Yeah.
Was and the reason why it happened was, when I got laid off from Marvel, I swore, I will never take a job that I don't love, because I've done a job that I love doing Marvel. So I'm going to hold out until I have a job that I love. And then I got a mortgage that I had to pay. And I'm like, okay, I'll take a job.
And you love your mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. I love my home. So I ran into lots of people who were not creative, but there were also, it was almost 50-50. There were the people who, like me, were sort of working in medical publishing, but they had this sort of whole other side to themselves. Like one was an opera singer, or, one was a musician, or they had this other thing going on in their life. So that was really interesting for me. So, I don't know if it's quite so hard cut, or a clear cut.
No, of course it's not. It was a learning experience for me again after Marvel, to realize, everybody doesn't operate this way.
Oh my God. I knew from the first day I walked in, and, I have the first 3 Star Wars movies in my head. They're just there. And And by the first three, I mean the real first three, you know.
Of course.
Yes. So, you know, every once in a while, somebody would say something, and I'd say something like, only you could be so bold. The Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. And I just start rattling off Star Wars lines. And that was the first place I'd ever been in, where my coworkers would start rattling the lines back to me. So
Yeah.
we would go back and forth with the lines. Yeah, it was that kind of place. So to get back to the person's question, you know, was that the secret sauce? I think it was a love of the characters, a love of creativity, and a real desire to sort of add to the legend of the place, to add to we were so excited to be there, to be able to contribute. We wanted to make it grander, bigger, better, and in whatever way we could come up with. I mean, I remember when I came up with Darkhold, I was sitting around thinking, God, I really want to write my own title, but nobody's ever going to let me write my own title unless I come up with something really, 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 really good. And so I scratched my head and I'm like, what is Marvel not doing now? And I'm like, Marvel hasn't done horror in forever. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, how could I do horror? And when I thought, I read somewhere in in the Marvel universe or something like that, where they described the Darkhold and they said, oh, at one point the pages had been scattered and then most had been recollected back into a single book. And I'm like, ding, most, but not all. And that was what I needed for that idea that, you know, I tried to use to enlarge, you know, a bit of the Marvel legend. And then, of course, now the Darkhold is all over the place, Scarlet Witch, all that. So,
look, I can honestly say that comic books were so important to me as a kid. I was raised as an only child, so a lot of, you know, I'd be out playing with my friends. The street lights would come on. You'd have to go in. They had their brothers and sisters to play with. I did not. And my mom was a librarian, so neither my mom or dad, they didn't care what I read as long as I was reading. If I was reading the TV guide, they were happy. They encouraged the love of comic books. And they were so important to me when I was a kid. I can honestly say that every day I worked at Marvel, I thought, man, if I'm doing this for one or two kids, if I'm bringing the sort of joy and excitement to one or two kids that I got out of comics as a child, how lucky am I? I mean, I felt really privileged to be in that position and do that. And I honestly felt it every day.
And when you got those letters that said that you'd succeeded, over the moon. Over the moon. I remember I got a letter from one reader about what I had done in Starfleet Academy, the Star Trek series I was writing. And that person now has gone on to write comic books herself. And what she was inspired by was the variety of characters, because she herself is trans. And so for her, some of those characters spoke to that trans identity, which was then, you know, nascent. And now she's trans and writing comic books herself very successfully. So when you get those letters, just, you know, responding to something you've done. And when someone says, I read this issue and I was on the edge of my seat, and then this happened and I screamed, and this happened and I cheered, and you're like, oh my God, I succeeded. You know?
Wait, can you tell us who this comic book writer is?
Oh, sure. It's Mags Visaggio.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's out there writing stuff, and she's I think at one point she pitched to write whoever has the Star Trek license now, and she pitched to write for them. I don't know if she got the job or not. I don't think she did. But that would have been a blast if she had ended up writing. Anyway, but yeah, and also when a character you create gets picked up by somebody else and they run with it and they use it, that's like one of the best validations. It's like you're a fellow writer has said, oh, I like that, I can work with that, and they go with it. That's tremendous fun.
But I know a surprising amount of comic book writers who, once they leave a project, they never read what the following writers are doing with their characters. They never do that. They don't.
Probably because you think it's your babies and you don't want to see your babies ruined or something like that. I haven't. Apparently, a couple of the characters I created in Starfleet Academy have been picked up and used in some of the non-canonical Star Trek novels.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, yay, but I haven't read them. But I'm like, yes, do that. Go with it.
And just assume the best.
Yeah, exactly. This way I can't be disappointed.
Yeah, smart.
I love hearing that.
All right, your most unhinged story.
Oh God.
You can
Oh
name names or not. It's up to you.
no, it's probably well. There's a couple. Um, there's sort of something I did in a comic. There's things that happened while I was in the office. There's all kinds. There's different brands.
Well, you got to
Okay.
bring them on because we've heard how like people have gone fishing from the Marvel building with Darkseid's hand with a candy bar on it. We've heard what was
Mark
it?
Gruenwald naked, wrapped in saran wrap.
Well, I
Somebody
don't know if
falling
I have
asleep in the
anything.
fridge.
I don't know if I have anything that extreme.
Oh, come on.
The thing that immediately comes to mind is Barry Dutter was writing, who was an assistant editor at the time, and he was writing the bullpen bulletins. So he was going around to all the, I think was it just the guys? No, I think because he asked Bobby Chase, maybe, I don't know, but he was going to all the editorial staff and asking them if they could date one comic book character, who would it be and why? So he's going around the office and he's asking everybody, and he just kind of skips by my office. And I'm like, oh no, Barry, no, come back over here. And he's like, okay, Chris, if you had to date one comic book character, who would it be? And of course, I hadn't really thought about it. So I just gave it a little bit of thought. Colossus. And he's like, why? And I thought about it. I thought, because the name speaks for itself.
Yes, clearly does. He's a man of steel.
And of course, I never saw print.
No, and that's too bad. And who would that have offended? No one.
Oh, come on. There's so many people that take offense at
only
everything.
the people that should be offended. It would only offend the people that should be offended. So that's fair.
Let's see. What are some of the other crazy? Well, the Halloween parties were always a blast.
Yeah.
I used to throw a chocolate party every year where I'm a chocoholic, and I have this encyclopedic memory of where I've had the best chocolate desserts all around town.
Wow.
And so once a year, I don't do it anymore. Maybe I should reinstitute the tradition. But once a year, I would go around to all these restaurants and beg, borrow, and steal to get them to give me, a cake or whatever of that chocolate. And then I would serve it in this party in our little tiny Manhattan apartments, or sometimes I would do it jointly with a friend at his apartment. But it was always a little tiny space.
Yeah.
And when you walked in, your sinuses would get blasted with cocoa the minute you walked in the door because there was that much chocolate in the room. But it was like usually a room of mostly gay men who are all like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to have a little slice because I'm watching my waistline. I'm like, eat the goddamn chocolate. Yeah. So I would always end up with this ton of really exquisite, delicious chocolate left over at the end of the party, and I would bring it into the Marvel office. Mm-hmm. And I would just kind of lay it out. And the bullpen, it was like shark feeding frenzy. They would descend, and there would be the swirling of bodies, and then all gone. No more chocolate.
The difference between last night when no one was, they were just like, oh, I'll just look and smell it, to gimme. Yeah.
The bullpen was voracious.
Have you ever spoken to Jason Liebig about that? Because Jason has this whole thing about candy. He's like a candy expert now, and he knows all the best places to get chocolates and candies.
See, I'm real particular about my chocolate. It's got to be really good chocolate.
Talk to him. I'm not. I have nothing to contribute to this.
Like a Mars bar isn't going to cut it. M&Ms, no,
not M&Ms. But I love it.
I mean, so are you dark chocolate, milk chocolate, white chocolate?
Dark. I will accept milk chocolate, but I prefer dark chocolate. Hang on one second. I'm going to silence my phone. There we go. Dark chocolate, number one. I will accept milk chocolate. White chocolate is an abomination. It should not cross anybody's lips. It is not chocolate. Don't even think about it. You give me white chocolate, I will throw it back at you.
Oh, but a zero bar. Like you take a zero bar, and I don't even know if people know what a zero bar is anymore. It's nougat with like basically it's nougat and caramel covered in a white chocolate fudge. Throw it in the freezer and it just, oh yes.
Just as long as you don't call it chocolate, that's fine by me. But don't call it
Yeah,
chocolate.
My understanding is white chocolate is basically lard.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the
It's
butter fat that's left
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, but nothing wrong with butter.
But don't call it chocolate.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I agree with that. Jared Osborne came in with a fun little thing. The most unhinged story is Chris making bird noises as we played Magic the Gathering at lunchtime whenever he brought out a bird card. So there was a reason for it.
Hey, Jared.
Hi, Jared. No, okay. So yes, we played a lot of Magic in the Gathering back in the day, and I had a bird deck because birds. So and it flew and it retreated to an island where it was protected and then it would fly out again. So yes, I don't recall making bird noises, but neither am I shocked either.
Not denying it either.
Not denying.
Very nice. Oh, we love unhinged stories and getting involved with it. Um, but speaking of doing things in theme, this is the point where I get to do a shameless plug for Heroes Be Damned, by Vince Nico and the return of Terry Kavanagh. Uh, this is up. The Kickstarter's live. We got more backers. We're reaching 200. Get us to 200. I dare you.
Ooh, ooh, double dare him.
Yeah, right there. I'm watching you. Go do it. Go back the project. It's really cool. I am a newbie to the comic books, and I've read through all of this, and I thoroughly enjoy it. In fact, if you haven't done so already, check out the reward tiers as well on the Kickstarter. All of those are really cool, but I want to talk a little bit about the add-ons while we're in theme of everything going on. Not only do we have our classic metal cards coming up, we also have our very first tabletop game. I got to design the wonderful Deception game for Heroes Be Damned, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you add that on. But we've added two more. We have the hollow foil cover, and we have the Bill Sinkinowitz metal cover that you can add on now. So we've added those two just in case you're like, okay, I want the standard edition, but that metal cover would look really cool. You should get that. So do it. Back the project.
It's a
Magic Name
really
says
good.
so.
It's a really good project. I only was the editor on it, and I came on board when the first 3 issues were mostly complete. So I contributed a scene here and there, and maybe a title change to Heroes Be Damned. But the writer artist Vince Sinico, honestly, this guy puts everything on the page, and it's a great story.
I agree, and it's going to be really awesome. Chris, I don't know if Terry shared it with you yet, but you should give it a read as well because I love the series and I think it's a very fun twist about
So,
heroes and villains.
what's the premise?
It's there is a character who originally was named Loathe, but I sort of loathed that title. Uh, uh, and he is killing off all heroes and villains. In particularly Doctor the abominable Dr. Fives way.
Oh,
Cases
oh,
that is
now
specific.
you have me.
They are, yeah, and there's a mystery element of why he's doing this or how he's so powerful. There's Vince has introduced characters that are haircuts on character on archetypes that we know very, very well in the comic book industry, but he's turned it on its head a bit for how and why this all came about. I can't give away too much, but the art.
No. That's all you needed to say.
Beautiful. I will send it to you, Chris.
And I will say to anybody who doesn't, because it's been a long time now, anybody who doesn't know the Abominable Dr. Fives that Terry just referenced, that's this wonderful campy movie from, I don't know, it must be the late 70s, starring Vincent Price as Dr. Fives, who creates the most imaginative possible deaths for the people he's taking vengeance on. It's tremendous fun. I love the movie. And so You had me at Dr. Fives.
Okay, good. Yeah, in the Dr. Fives movies, he would like take someone who was greedy and he would create some kind of death that spoke to their greediness in some way. I mean, I can't remember any of the details now, but
yeah, or like I think there was one guy who was like asleep in his bed and he drips honey on him, and you're like,
yes,
why is he dripping honey on him?
I
And then
remember.
a cage opens up and fruit bats come flying in, and so the fruit bats are like
Yes. That's the only murder I can really remember, the honey dripping from the ceiling. That's funny.
Yeah. So it's a fun movie. And there's a sequel.
Yes.
What is it? Dr. Fives Rises Again? Something like that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
And the sequel for usually sequels are not up to par. And the sequel is actually pretty good. So.
Well, because they knew what they were. They knew they were a camp horror movie, and they embraced that. They didn't try and, with the second one, make it a big budget thing. It was all about letting Vincent Price be Vincent Price.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Yep. No, it was a lot of fun.
We do have another question for you, Chris. Could the guest share his favorite chocolate brands?
Okay. I hope you're sitting down. I'll give you two.
I've got a
So
pen.
the easily acquired and the less easily acquired. So the less easily acquired is you've got to find a Neuhaus outlet. It's pronounced Neuhaus. It's Neuhaus. Now, they have a couple of branches here in New York City. I don't know how widespread they are outside of New York City. But you go to Neuhaus, and you get a chocolate they have called a Cerisette. And what it is it's a cherry enrobed in with the stem and the pit, everything, enrobed in dark chocolate, and then infused with, I think, whiskey or brandy, I forget what, but with alcohol. So then to eat it, because you know the pit's in there, you've got to bite it very delicately and kind of, as the chocolate and whiskey and cherry flavor diffuses on your tongue, maneuver the pit out. And as you're doing that, all those flavors have time to just sort of sit there in your mouth.
Oh, man.
So good. So good.
So this is dark chocolate, right?
That's dark chocolate.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to try to see if I can find that one.
Yeah, it's called
I'll be right back. Someone's at my door.
Cerisette. Cerisette. And the last time I got them, for some reason, the pits weren't in there, which I found not pleasing, because maneuvering the pit out is what lets the flavor really just kind of linger on your tongue. The other thing you can do, and this is a lot of fun, I do this when I'm watching Dark Shadows reruns, because when I was a little kid, I watched Dark Shadows on TV, which is the supernatural soap opera from the 1970s on ABC TV. It was a big hit. Anyway, so I would eat chocolate milk and cookies as I watched Dark Shadows. I decided I needed an upgrade as an adult. So you take Pepperidge Farm Milano cookies, but you want the double dark chocolate Milano cookies. And you take a glass of a liqueur called creme de cacao. And you take the double dark Milano and you stick it in the glass of creme de cacao and you let it sit there. You don't dunk it, you let it sit there for like a whole minute so that the liquor infuses the cookie. Then you pull it out and you eat it.
Ooh.
So good.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds
Those
delicious.
are my two go-tos for chocolate. But dark chocolate, it's hard to go wrong. The higher end the brand, sadly, which means you're paying more money for it, the better the chocolate tends to be. And I have to admit, as these two examples prove, I like a little liquor in my chocolate. Oh, there's the Cerisette. That's it. Yeah. It's Kirsch. That's what's in it.
And Kirsch, yeah.
Kirsch, yes. It's so good. Really good.
Oh.
Yeah, chocoholics, you have a friend in me.
See, I couldn't eat that. I'm allergic to berries.
Oh.
I'm allergic to berries and nuts, so that limits my chocolate consumption sometimes.
How did your ancestors survive foraging in the trees?
Irish potatoes. I can say that. No one else can.
I was going to say, wow.
I'm allowed to say it. I'm not allergic to potatoes.
And a good thing that is.
Yes, that really is.
What about tomatoes? Because they're technically a fruit.
I can eat tomatoes.
Okay.
And I had my first strawberry a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And, my wife and kids were sitting there with my EpiPen ready to stab me as soon as possible. And I had my first strawberry, and it was really good. And then I took a bite from the second, and my tongue started getting itchy. So I knew I shouldn't pursue that. But like for the next 6 months, everybody I met, I'm like, have you tried strawberries? They're so good. And eventually, Holly, my wife, was like, stop saying that. Everybody has tried strawberries. I'm like, I'm just trying to share the joy. I'm just sharing why is it bad? She's like, everyone has tried strawberries. You were the last person. You don't need to, wake them up to the joy of strawberries.
Well, I kind of had the same thing when I was about 17. I had my first peach because I refused to eat peaches because they had that fuzz on the outside. I'm like, that's gross. I'm not going to eat that. So finally, I screwed up my courage and I ate a peach, and happily it was a peach that was, because peaches, they can be not ripe or they can be mushy. This peach was just ripe.
Ooh.
And the flavor and the juice I was like, oh my God, why haven't I been eating peaches all this time? So, but really, my favorite fruits are, and I'm sorry to do this, Terry, because you can't. Well, berries, maybe. Can you eat mango?
Yeah, I can eat mango.
Can you eat pineapple?
I can, but I won't. I don't like it.
Those are two of my favorites: mango, pineapple, and cherries. Shockingly, since I eat CRSS, those are my go-to fruits. I adore those things.
Wow!
And I remember when I took my grandmother to a Indian restaurant for her birthday, and she ordered a lassi, which is this yogurt drink.
Oh yes, a mango lassi. Oh.
That was the thing. She didn't realize it was mango, and she's from the islands and from Guyana and the Caribbean area. So she gets this lassi and she takes one sip and she goes, "Mango." Gone. Just gone.
Wow.
Oh man, I feel bad because this happens whenever I host Super Sketchy as well. We always end up on food somehow. And K-pop junkies here. Hey K-pop, it always ends up with food with Magic Nate. Yes, yum mango. And then Jared's coming in with Sanders small batch dark chocolate caramels are what I've been eating lately. Have you had those?
Caramel in my chocolate doesn't work for me. And I know for a lot of people that's like it, but I don't like caramel in my chocolate. I also don't like nuts in my chocolate unless it's peanuts.
What about salt?
Salt?
Salted chocolate.
Salt can be okay.
Like a sea salt.
Yeah. It can add a sort of a little bit. I don't like chili in my chocolate, and a lot of Mexican sourced chili in my chocolate. I'm like, no, don't add fire to my chocolate. The chocolate should has its own bite.
Oh yeah, chili powder. I was picturing a chocolate you bite into, and there's like a bowl of chili in there.
Oh,
no, chili powder makes more sense. Although I would eat that chocolate chili. I would try that.
Pretty sure that's out there. Let's go with Stan saying pineapple pizza is amazing.
Wrong.
I'm for it.
Obviously, you're not from Hawaii, Terry.
Yes, I definitely not. Potato pizza, though. Potato pizza is the best.
Pizza.
Potato pizza. And now y'all know.
I'm going to try it later.
I'm going to be looking this up, see if anybody's actually done it before.
They have.
I'm trying to think. Do we have any good food stories from the Marvel days besides the chocolate?
Oh, here we go.
Well, we had a lot of lunches.
Oh yeah, and they again a different era. They were sometimes very liquid lunches.
Very liquid lunches, and we had unlimited expense accounts until one particular editor took advantage of that.
Who? Name names.
I will name names to you afterward. But that editor would make sure he took some freelancer out once a week or once a day, every day. He took someone out and then bought 2 meals for himself, one to take home for dinner.
I have a guess as to who that might have been. But
Well, and that editor got caught, and it really reined in our expense accounts. That editor also, and I was Ann Nesenti's assistant when I started, and she came back from lunch one day and said she had just seen that editor on the corner like 5 blocks away with no shoes or socks begging for money.
Ooh.
Is that the same person you're thinking of?
I don't think so. No. I do remember when Terry Stewart first came on as president, and we had sort of this big welcome party. Whose place was it at? Was it Bob Harris's place, or was it?
He had an apartment on the Upper East Side at that.
I don't think it was at his apartment though. Oh, well, you mean Bob did?
Yeah, Bob did. Yeah.
I think it might have been Bob's apartment. But we had like this welcome Terry Stewart party, and because Terry came from New Orleans, we were drinking Hurricanes in abundance.
Yes.
And so we were all smashed. I just remember all of us dancing around to the Supremes, you know. Baby love, my baby love. I mean, just
any day of the week.
Yeah.
Could have been any day of the week.
Yeah, it really could have. Now, there was no drinking in the Marvel offices usually.
According to who? According to who? There were a lot of things done in the Marvel offices that probably wouldn't pass muster now.
Oh, so you want a wild story. Do you remember the Christmas party with a certain dangerous person? This person worked as, I want to say, a receptionist, backup receptionist or something like that. And
Marvel?
At Marvel. And she was at the annual holiday party. And as there were at the holiday parties back then, there would be costumed, characters there, just to add flavor or whatever.
Yeah.
And this person ended up coming out of the bathroom looking all rumpled. And the person dressed as Magneto came out a little bit later. And that person kept running up to people at the party and saying, "I've been magnetized."
Well, okay. It wasn't Erica. Erica was the main receptionist.
No, it was not Erica.
Yeah,
no, not Erica. Not by a long shot.
All right, I'm going to need names there.
Okay, so we can exchange names later.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was. I think she got into trouble for that too, and I'm like, why? They both had fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious as to what made her dangerous.
Oh, I'll tell you later.
Okay. All right.
We have another little comment from Jared. When Mort was running Marvel Music, he ran his yearly expense account out in February because he was taking out rock stars. They were a little different than comic book writers and artists.
Yeah, no question.
Well, we worked with one nascent, we being when I first started, I was working in custom comics. And so we worked with a nascent rock star, Jacqueline Sahara Tavares, who wanted to be known professionally as Nightcat.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We did that comic.
Yeah. So we did the Nightcat comic, and she came into the offices. And of course, all the straight boys, their tongues are hanging out and they're drooling because, she's kind of bodacious, and she dressed as a wannabe bodacious rock star would dress. And so all the boys were like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, no, she came in and did her Nightcat bit. I wonder whatever happened to her. I don't think she ever made it as Nightcat.
I remember there was one issue of the comic, right?
Yeah.
And then
I think it was supposed to be within universe too.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
So someone's going to revive Nightcat, and she's going to be made into the next Marvel movie.
It's going to happen. It's not a horrible name. It's a workable name.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Night anything is workable.
Yeah, exactly. And cat. Anything cat.
Can't go wrong.
Yep.
Huh. I'm looking at the Nightcat stuff, and I'm like, I could see Natasha Lyonne like taking on something like that, I guess.
Oh, we're
Boy.
already casting the movie. All right. Yes.
And she was almost like Black Cat. She had like fur around. Am I right, Nate? Is that what you're looking at it?
Well, I see a lot of leather.
And I think
Um,
the cover had her in the typical comic book babe pose,
Yeah.
you know,
Butt first.
butt first, breasts out,
yeah,
And somehow you could see it all. You could see butt, breasts, and face on the same body at the same time.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And the hair is going everywhere.
let's we'll just do this briefly. So
Oh, yeah, I see it. There it is.
yep, you got like yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that was not what I was picturing, but
Yeah,
now,
but the cover has the usual,
yeah,
pretty much has got the pose there.
yeah.
Maybe not as extreme as some others we have seen. Oh, speaking of extreme poses in not a lot of outfits, one of my most prideful moments of my work at Marvel, the swimsuit issue, which Bobby gave me for some unknown reason because of all the people to do swimsuit. And I was like,
You were Bobby's assistant at that time, right?
I think at that point I was an associate editor.
Associate, yeah, okay.
And I was like, if I'm going to do swimsuit, number one, it's going to be 50-50. It's not going to be like, Black Widow bearing it all in the foreground and, Captain America in board shorts out of focus in a little teeny tiny background. I'm like, oh no. So but the other thing about making 50-50 was that it inoculated us from accusations of sexism.
Yes.
So I'm like, this is not only necessary in this day and age, but it will please me. So that's what I'm doing. And people really didn't know it hit them.
Yeah, because we had done swimsuit issues before that, and they were all cheesecake, no beefcake.
Yeah, well.
Somehow this recently came up on this show. It might have been Howard Mackey talking about that. I'm not sure, but someone recently brought that up, and I didn't realize that you had introduced the beefcake into it.
Hell yeah! I'm like, it's got to be something I'm interested in too.
Sure.
And the female readers were totally appreciative. We got this letter from jointly written by these two women who were like, Thor naked. We want Thor naked next time. Just naked. It just went on. And Warren Ellis had the best thing, or a comic book writer named Warren Ellis wrote this in his blog, wrote something about how swimsuit sort of underwent this metamorphosis and how it was like this incredible thing to have happened back in that day. So anyway, yeah, it was fun. That was fun.
I still can't get over cheesecake, not beefcake. Like,
did I make that up?
I don't know because I've never heard that before, but now it's gonna stick in my head and it's never gonna go away.
Oh yeah, no, that's pretty. And you talk about like stars who expose themselves because they've got great bodies. If it's a woman, it's cheesecake, and if it's a man, it's beefcake. Yeah.
But thinking
not that I'm an expert on beefcake or anything.
Yeah, thinking that through right now, beefcake doesn't sound tasty.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, it does.
Said I'll take both.
I guess it depends who you ask.
Sean Chen coming in with Marvel swimsuit special has returned this year.
What?
Really?
Oh, I want to know what they did with it.
Okay, I'll do the quick research as we go through these. Jared, a couple of semesters ago, I had to explain to my college-age students what beefcake and cheesecake meant. None of them had heard those terms before.
Wow. Maybe it's old school.
It must be.
Yeah, old like us.
Yeah.
K-pop's coming in with there needs to be way more beefcake swimsuit editions.
Yeah, I'm really curious if they're keeping to the 50-50 that we.
Yeah.
Well, also, I did 2 issues of swimsuit, and then they stopped doing it entirely.
That's what I thought. They had stopped that public, and now like companies like Zenoscope basically are doing that all the time. You probably don't follow their comics, but
but
yeah. Well, okay. Well, I've heard cheesecake, and I've heard beefcake individual. It's just the putting of together of cheesecake, not beefcake, is what got me on that.
Okay.
Um, Here's some show and tell for you. We're gonna share this. I don't care about trending in the universe. There you go. There's the
Up. Look, Chris.
Go Colossus, go!
This is made just for you.
yeah, that's why I was like, oh.
Nice.
So
So this is the
there's
new one.
yep, the 2025 swimsuit special.
That's interesting. They're leading with the beefcake, and the cheesecake is just sort of an addition.
And they kept the logo. That's the logo we used from back when.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna have to get this.
Let's
It's made for you.
oh, and
Oh,
more.
is this some of the interior stuff?
I don't know. I just showed up here and we got yeah, I'm guessing so, just judging by like how more modern it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I'm a little concerned that in a lot of them the guys are sort of relegated to the background again. So
I mean they're there. And I mean a hunky boy over here.
Who are those characters?
that looks like it's Cyclops and Jean Grey, is it?
Maybe.
Phoenix, not Jean Grey, because fiery hair and then as much as
You're right. It is
I was
Phoenix.
trying to point out, but I'm like the pointer's on her ass, and I don't want
We
that to
just saw
happen.
that.
I don't know who that is in the back. I'm not going to zoom in more. Just to
you know
avoid
what?
it.
That must be Cloak and Dagger.
Oh, yeah.
This one, I mean, you got I Johnny Storm. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And
Johnny Storm and Elektra.
Okay,
That's an odd combo.
that really is.
I do want to point out, even though I'm kind of new to comics, it's very interesting to see the artistic differences between like this one over here, the Phoenix and Cyclops, and then this one where she's more pinup.
Mm-hmm.
The Cloak and the one we think might be Cloak and Dagger, that actually looks like Adam Hughes's work, and he did pinups for me back in the day for Swimsuit. Beautiful stuff. He always
Adam's work was spectacular.
Yeah, that's what
spectacular.
K-pop was asking. Is that Adam Hughes? I don't know what She-Hulk and oh, I can zoom in like that. That's better.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's
oh, Tony Stark. Okay, I get it with the Iron Man thing. And then I mean,
all right. That's just a cheat.
Yeah. Maybe I too will be getting this edition. No. This is oh.
Which brings us full circle to that. Which comic book character would you date?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. So this is Human Torch and Scarlet Witch.
Okay, that's even
Scarlet Witch. The hair is
yeah.
That's
a weird combo.
And She-Hulk, Black Cat, and Black Panther.
Oh, Black Cat and Black Panther.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
That works.
I have no idea about this one. I'm just no idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
So they brought it back. And here I thought I'd killed the thing.
I just read this morning that the new Black Panther is white.
What?
Yeah, there's some comic book series. It's like a Marvel Knights continual comic book series. And I have not read the actual issue yet. I read a little article about it where the T'Challa fights somebody for the mantle of Black Panther and loses, and that person strips off their mask and they're white. And
It's a twist.
And the assumption is that it's Black Panther's son. It's T'Challa's son. But they're talking about how it's his son with Monica Lynn, and both T'Challa and Monica Lynn were black. So I find that very confusing.
Okay. Clearly,
K-pop agrees with you.
Yes. Right.
They say it's his son taking over.
Huh.
But it's, I guess, in a Marvel Knights timeline, so they don't really, because that seems a questionable thing to do. It really does to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, to take a character who is so iconically black, and for a reason, and it's certainly a twist. It's like having Thor be a woman for a while, right. But it seems like a twist, written for the Trump age by Pete Hegseth. Yeah,
yes, I mean, the Panther is the leader of an African nation. I remember Don McGregor telling me a story about way back when he was doing, and I loved when I was a kid, his Black Panther stuff and jungle action. Maybe that was questionable, but was doing great, and he was doing most of it in Wakanda. And the powers that be at the time called him in and said, "We need more white people in these stories." And he said, "Well, it's taking place in an African nation. We can get some in there." And they just kept insisting. And the book only came out twice a month, and I think only half the issue was reprints, and then the other half was new Black Panther stories. So that's when, to satisfy the powers that be, he had the Panther come for a 2-issue story arc to the U.S. and fight the Klan. And he was like, "You wanted white people. I gave you them in white clothing. I gave you white people in white clothing."
I have to say the movie of Black Panther may be it's close to my favorite Marvel movie. It was just so beautifully done and was so centered on the experience of Black people, both in the States and in Africa, that it was just it's such a breath of fresh air, that it just was a whole new slant. And the fact that it appealed to people who are Black and not Black. So,
yes. Well, and look, I loved the conflict in that movie. I understood Killmonger's position, and I understood the Black Panther's position on this. I understood Killmonger saying, "No, we got to share this. Outside of our little tiny nation, we have to share what we have and the bounty that we have." I understood that. That was a great conflict because there was rooting value for both sides there. I thought that was tremendous.
The part that really hit home for me was when Killmonger goes to his dad's place in the dream time. When he goes to dream, when T'Challa goes in the dream time, he's on the veldt with all the ancestors there. And when Killmonger goes to the dream time, he's stuck in an apartment in Oakland, in a bad neighborhood with just his dad. And I was like, that is such a perfect metaphor for how we African Americans feel. Detached and disconnected from the ancestors because that was deliberately eradicated and stuck in this place, where we can't get out. That part of the movie for me was magnificent.
It was a great movie. It really was. I don't think the second lived up to the first.
No, it didn't. And the outfits. I mean, come on. What's her name? What's the name of that Black actress? Who
played the mother, Ramona.
Yes. Come on, I worship the ground she walks on. I can't think of her name. Anyway, in those the tiaras she had and the costumes are just amazing in that movie.
Angela Bassett.
Thank you, Angela Bassett.
Oh yeah,
insane.
K-pop came in with this Angela Bassett on that too.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm going to ask if you have one more good unhinged or crazy wild story for us before we bring this in for a landing.
One more unhinged, crazy, wild story.
You can make it up. It doesn't have to be true. Because we're storytellers. That's fair.
I had them in mind. Oh well, the most unhinged thing for me was when we put out Alpha Flight 10, was it Alpha Flight 106, 107? Now I can't remember. The one where North Star comes out of the closet.
Right.
Oh my God. That was insane.
Was it done well? I can't remember.
Sorry?
Was it done well?
It was done well enough.
Okay.
I don't want to put it down too much. It was very wordy. It was verbose.
Did Scott Liddell write it? Scott
wrote it. Scott wrote it. And we actually cut out like a third of the dialogue, and it was still really, really ponderous. But the thing was, I remember, we just did it because, Bobby has a gay brother. I'm gay assistant editor. This is the world we live in. This is part of the world. So we just did it because back in those days, certainly each editorial office was its own fiefdom. You did what you did. And so I go walking down to Pam Rutt's office, who was head of PR, and I'm like, oh yeah, we just got our first press inquiry about Alpha Flight 106, and she's like, oh, what happens in Alpha Flight 106? I'm like, oh, North Star comes out of the closet, and the blood just drained from her face. And she said, I need 7 copies of that right away.
Wow.
Try to make it, and as an assistant editor, your chief job is making Xeroxes. So I'm like Xeroxing away 7 more copies. I haven't even finished Xeroxing. I get back to my desk. There's another message from her. I need 7 more copies of that right away.
Wow. So, question, was it, I can't remember it exactly, but was it clearly stated he was coming out of the closet, or was it implied?
No, it was clearly stated in the solicitation.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And the list, so that's, somebody had called me, they'd read the solicitation, and they said, is North Star really coming out of the closet in Alpha Flight 106? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, he's coming out of the closet. And I turned to Bobby, because your assistant editor and your editor sit in the same room. I turned to Bobby and I said, oh yeah, we just got a press inquiry about that. Is there some protocol we're supposed to follow? And she goes, oh, you just had to go and tell Pam Rutt. So I did. And the shit hit the fan.
Wow. I didn't realize that was protocol. I don't think I ever did that. But I don't.
Well, you never dragged anybody out of the closet in the early 90s.
No, that's true. There were enough weird things going on with Wolverine in Marvel Comics Presents where I have told this story previously, but I hired an artist to do a Peter David Wolverine serial. Okay. And it was an artist I got from yours and Bobby's office.
Oh.
Who had done a fill-in Hulk for you, and I saw it, and I had to replace what was going to be the original artist on that serial. And I just wanted them to pencil, but they sent in the first 8 pages fully penciled and inked, and Wolverine was stark naked throughout. Full frontal and rear nudity. And I call him up, and I'm like, what? And he said to me, and this was true, nowhere in the plot does it say that Wolverine's not naked. And he was absolutely right. It did not say that anywhere in the plot. And I said, but nowhere in the plot does it say Wolverine's not wearing a bowling ball on his head. But you had the sense to not put a bowling ball on his head. Like, fine, send me the pages back. So I send him back. He adds foliage to the frontal nudity to cover things up. Not foliage on the body, but covering things. But for the rear nudity, he just added more hair to Wolverine's butt. And I have to call him again. I'm like, no, the hairy butt is still a butt. And I can't print this. What are you thinking? I cannot print this. So he was like, fine, send it back. And he added more foliage there too.
Or artful shadows.
Yes, exactly. I also got a cover in from him. Again, I was waiting on a sketch and got a fully penciled and inked cover where Wolverine was impaled backwards on a tree branch, big, thick wood that was clearly going straight up his ass and coming straight out of his crotch. Big wooden thing coming straight out of his crotch. And I'm like, no. Okay. No. And he's like, at that point, he's like, what? What's the problem with this one? I'm like, it's wood coming out of his crotch. And he's, oh, that's just on you. That's your mind. Everyone at the company has Xeroxed this cover and has it hanging on their wall right now. It's not just me, trust me. So I
You're
have
gonna
a
have to tell me
Xerox.
the name of this one afterwards. Too.
I will. Oh, let's see. You might have a hint right there.
Yeah,
That-
K-pop.
Yep. That might be a hint. Yeah, I'll say it. It was Sam Keith. It was Sam, and I loved Sam's work. I would work with him any day of the week. So, yeah, having to explain that Wolverine can't be completely naked was a little extra effort I had to put in, but it was so worth it. Sam's work was so good.
Just make sure your plots are really, really, really
Very
specific.
Yes. Yes. It was one of those chapters where like Wolverine was out hunting and his version of hunting was just touch a deer. So it wasn't like he was walking around the streets naked. It was just an 8-page thing, in the forest. So I guess contextually it made sense, but it still, I couldn't print it.
Yeah, K-pop says that she hopes that you still have that art somewhere.
I do, but Chris has seen my apartment. There's no way I could access it or tell you where it is. Or
also, it's probably been art corrected, right?
Oh no, that art I Xeroxed. I have Xeroxes of it. I don't have the original. I have Xeroxes of the original of the cover and those 8 pages. So those first 8 pages, and everybody was taking those Xeroxes. They're like, "Oh, come on!" And it was beautiful, by the way. And Wolverine was gifted. He was surprisingly gifted for such
a short guy.
Short stature, yeah, exactly. So it took a lot of foliage.
You reminded me that my first job at Marvel was as the submissions editor, who has to review all the unsolicited stuff that people just randomly send in. And I kept the best of the worst, or the worst of the worst, for years. I had this compendium and I had it stored in my basement of this apartment. And then Sandy came and flooded the basement floor to ceiling. And I lost all of it. But some of it was so good. Like these 2 guys who created, like they had this flyer for their services, and they decided, we'll seem more legit as artists if we play ourselves as a corporation. So they named that corporation Creativity Limited.
That somebody didn't think that through.
Or the guy who wanted to prove that he could ink, and so he took a Frank Miller Daredevil, printed, and took a ballpoint pen and drew spirals all over every single page. And I got it. I'm like, I gasped and threw it across the room because I'm like, this is an abomination. You've taken Frank Miller's work and you've just been like, gah.
Wow. Well, everyone went through being submissions editor at some point.
Yeah. It was kind of the job you landed in when you first got there.
Yeah. Similar Marshall Spider-Man story there, except he didn't draw Spidey naked. He drew him as Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. No, I the submissions editor, I always thought was weird. Like, I started as Ralph Macchio's temporary assistant when Craig Anderson was going to be out sick with like mono or something for 6 months. So Michael Higgins just walked me into Ralph's office and said, Terry can do this. And Ralph's like, okay, he didn't want to interview people. But then when that was over, I knew enough people there once Craig Anderson came back that they kept me around. They're like, okay, go be submissions editor, and I'm like, so my job was, if anything was of value, I was to take Xeroxes and bring it to editors that might be able to use that artist. Very few things came in unsolicited that had value. Very few.
Lots of things to make you chuckle away.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One guy sent in he had the comic book printed so that it looked semi-professional. I opened up on paging through it, and not even noticing really that it's sort of like about this suburban white teen in his suburban white world, and then they get to the thugs who are going to attack him, and suddenly they're all black people.
Oh boy.
And I felt like sending back the rejection letter with the Polaroid of me attached.
Yeah. Now, guess why this is rejected? We used to get, when I was Ann Nesenti's assistant, we used to get black and white Xeroxes all the time from Matt Groening of Life is Hell. that eventually became The Simpsons. He was pitching it to do a Life is Hell comic book at Marvel, and everybody, you know, I think Shooter was editor in chief at the time. It's like, this isn't what we do, you know, but we all loved it. It was hysterically funny. And I mean, it was unprofessional looking at that stage, but still really, really fun.
Yeah. Well, if you see the early Simpsons, it's like light years from what you see today, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right,
I
Nate,
mean,
should we let Chris go?
I think we're at that time.
I got to eat something.
Yeah.
Yes.
We really appreciate you. Gave us a lot of extra time, Chris. Thank you.
Chris, where can people find you and stalk you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, Christian Cooper Birder. You'll find lots of bird stuff on there, but also, you know, plugs for some of my more recent work, like the kids book I talked about, The Urban Owls. I'm sure there's a thing or two in there about my memoir, and you should grab my memoir because it does have that whole section about Marvel back in the day. So the memoir is called Better Living Through Birding. Yes, it has a lot of bird stuff in it, but it also has that section that's all about Marvel. And it's, you know, like I said, I tried to capture the spirit of what it was like to be there back in the day, because it was a special place to work.
I appreciate that. And then just one more time, I got to tell you guys, share it with your friends, your family, your exes, whoever it is. Go follow Heroes Be Damned by Vince Nico in the return of Terry Kavanagh. It's a cool project. Go back it, do it now. And if you've already backed it, consider checking out one of our new add-ons, or add some add the add-ons. Yeah, that. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Chris, it's been unbelievably fun to have you on the show. Terry, it's been great as always. And you saucy nuggets out there, have a great day. I'll see you guys later.
Chris, hang on, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, you